The sound of footsteps echoed through the quiet pilot lounge of Western Skies Airlines, a place reserved strictly for those with high-level clearance. In a tucked-away corner sat 16-year-old Marcus Taylor, a black teenager, quietly engrossed in a documentary about the history of aviation. His eyes lit up with every scene, as if each frame fed his burning dream to one day become a commercial airline pilot. Hanging from his neck was a badge clearly labeled Youth Aviation Internship Program, proof that he belonged there with full permission from our. But the peace didn't last. Captain Hannah Whitaker, a seasoned white female pilot with decades of experience, entered the lounge. Her sharp eyes scanned the room until they landed on Marcus. She frowned, then strode toward him with a confrontational air. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice cutting like steel. Startled, Marcus stood up quickly and replied politely, "Ma'am, Ms. Emma from HR told me I could wait here while she handled an emergency. I'm part of the shadowing program." But Captain Whitaker didn't let him finish. "This area is for pilots and senior staff only. Someone like you shouldn't be in here." She immediately reached for her radio. "Security, pilot lounge. I have an unauthorized individual who needs to be removed." Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. He had followed every instruction exactly, so why was he now being treated like a trespasser? From the hallway, curious faces began to peek in. Some whispered, some stared. Not one person stepped forward to help him. He was completely alone. A sinking shame began to wash over him. The same room where he had just dreamed of flying now felt like a cage. His chest tightened with confusion. What had he done wrong? Just watched a documentary? Just existed while black? And yet, Marcus had no idea. This wasn't the end. In fact, it was just the beginning. Because within a few minutes, the truth would walk through those doors, and the entire balance of power in the room would shift in a way that no one, especially Captain Whitaker, could have predicted. Marcus stood frozen in the center of the pilot lounge as Captain Whitaker snatched the visitor badge from around his neck. The plastic card, his proud proof that he belonged, dangled from her hand like a piece of evidence in a crime. "There's no way someone like you got this legitimately," she sneered, inspecting the badge under the light as though she expected to find signs of forgery. I earned it," Marcus stammered. "I wrote an essay for the internship program. I was selected. You can check with Ms. Emma from HR." But the captain cut him off with a flick of her hand and another call over the radio. "Security. I repeat, I have a possible breach. Potentially forged credentials. Need backup in the pilot lounge immediately." The room began to fill. 2 security officers, tall and stoic in dark uniforms, arrived within moments. They flanked Marcus on either side, their expressions unreadable, their eyes focused not on the truth, but on the image of a security threat. All while the actual threat, the unjust assumptions and actions of Captain Whitaker, stood unchallenged. "Name and reason for entering this restricted area?" one of the officers asked. "Notebook ready." Marcus tried to explain again, but his voice faltered under the weight of fear. "My name is Marcus Taylor. I'm here for the Youth Shadow Program. I'm just waiting for my guide. She said I could stay here." Captain Whitaker stepped in, waving the badge like it was proof of a conspiracy. He was caught alone, loitering. "This badge might be fake. Or stolen. I've never seen him before. And there's no record of an appointment in the system." A murmur rippled through the doorway as a few pilots and airport staff paused to watch. Some nodded in agreement, others just stayed silent, complicit in their inaction. Marcus's cheeks burned with humiliation. The once-in-a-lifetime day he had waited so long for was now spiraling into a nightmare. "I didn't do anything wrong," he whispered, barely audible, but it didn't matter. Captain Whitaker turned to the crowd now gathering outside the lounge, speaking louder, her words performative and self-righteous. "This is why we need tighter security. Anyone can walk in, claim to be part of some program, and start looking around. What if he was filming? What if this was a planned breach?" Then came the final blow. "If his so-called mother shows up, she's probably a janitor or cafeteria worker. Don't worry, we'll make sure she's barred from this place too. Neither of them will trespass again." That stung more than anything. Marcus clenched his fists, not in anger, but in pain, not from anything physical, but from a sharp emotional wound, the cruel certainty that in her eyes, his mother, The woman who raised him, who taught him to reach for the skies, wasn't worth respecting either. I just want to call my mom, Marcus said again, louder this time, tears now welling in his eyes. She'll explain. Please, just let me call her. After a pause, one of the officers nodded. 1 minute, speakerphone. With trembling hands, Marcus pulled out his phone. He dialed the number from memory. Praying for strength, his voice cracked, but he forced the words out. Mom, something's wrong. I need you to come to Terminal B now. Please. He ended the call and looked down. His heart beat in his throat. The security officers stood stiff. Captain Whitaker crossed her arms with satisfaction, certain the problem would be removed soon. What she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that Marcus's mother wasn't a janitor. She owned the entire airline, and she was on her way. The minutes that followed felt like hours to Marcus. He sat silently in the corner of the pilot's lounge, eyes red, fists clenched on his knees. Every second, he replayed Captain Whitaker's words in his head, each one laced with insult and disbelief. His dream, the one he had nurtured since childhood, was now tangled in suspicion, humiliation, and fear. The clock ticked loudly on the wall. Then, everything changed. The radio clipped to the belt of one of the officers crackled. VIP inbound. Repeat. VIP approaching Terminal B lounge. Clear the corridor. There was a pause. A beat of confused silence, and then motion. Airport staff shifted nervously. One of the custodians quickly stepped aside. A barista behind the nearby kiosk dropped his rag mid-wipe. Conversations died. Even the security officers stiffened, exchanging uncertain glances. Marcus looked up, confused. He hadn't mentioned his mother's title. Had she brought help? His eyes widened when he saw them. Down the corridor came a team of 4 people, sharp suits, purposeful strides, and a quiet gravity that turned heads. At the center of the formation was a woman in a sleek charcoal pantsuit. Her hair pulled back, her steps precise. On her lapel was the unmistakable gold and navy insignia of Horizon Airlines, with an added crest beneath it. CEO. It was his mother, Danielle Taylor, and she was not here as a parent. She was here as the owner. The air in the lounge thickened. Captain Whitaker, oblivious, was still lecturing a group of employees about security threats and falsified credentials. But the officers now stood at attention. The crowd parted like waves. Danielle strode directly to Marcus. Without a word, she wrapped her arms around him. Not a soft hug, not a gesture for show, but a mother's full-bodied embrace. Marcus collapsed into her arms. The dam finally breaking. She didn't say anything for a moment, only held him close. Then she turned. Her face, moments ago so gentle, hardened into something diamond-like. She stood upright, scanned the room, and locked eyes with Captain Whitaker. The captain's voice faltered. Danielle's tone was low and calm, the kind of calm that made everyone tense. "That's my son you accused," she said, every syllable carrying the weight of command. "The one you humiliated, the one you publicly called a liar. The one you summoned security for, without checking a single fact." Whitaker blinked. Miss Jackson, Ms. Taylor, I didn't know." Danielle raised a hand. "No, you didn't care to know." There was no yelling, no rage, just a devastating truth, delivered with precision. "You assumed," Danielle continued. "You saw a young black teenager sitting in a pilot lounge and decided he didn't belong. You tore his badge off. You accused him of fraud. You insulted his mother." Danielle paused, letting her words hit. "And now you realize that the woman you mocked? The cleaner you promised to have fired?" She stepped closer. "That's me. I own this airline." The room was dead silent. Not even the ventilation hummed. Captain Whitaker's mouth opened, then shut. Her face had gone pale, then red. Danielle turned to the officers. "Has my son been accused of a crime?" One of them cleared his throat. "No, ma'am, not anymore." "Then remove any records you've started. Today's incident is over, and you'll speak with legal before filing a single report." Then, she turned back to Whitaker. "Effective immediately. You are suspended from all Horizon flight operations pending a formal review. You will not be returning to a cockpit." "Ms. Taylor, please," Whitaker started, desperation cracking her voice. I've been with the airline for 20 years. And yet you never learned what leadership looks like. Danielle replied, It's not measured in flight hours. It's measured in integrity. Marcus, still shaken, watched as the woman who had terrified him moments ago now stood frozen. Helpless. Captain Amara Brooks, one of the airline's senior pilots, and one of the few black women to fly Horizon's long-haul routes, stepped forward. She had arrived quietly during the confrontation. Now, with Danielle's nod, she took Marcus's hand. Come on, future pilot, Amara said with a kind smile. Let's get you a real cockpit tour. You've earned it. Marcus hesitated, then stood. The applause began slowly, from a young gate agent, from a mechanic leaning in the doorway, then it spread. Not for spectacle, but for truth, for a reckoning, for a quiet boy who had faced down injustice and stood taller because of it. As Marcus walked down the hall, flanked by Captain Amara and his mother, he didn't just feel like he belonged. He knew it. The following hours at Horizon Airlines were unlike anything the terminal had ever seen. News of the confrontation spread like wildfire. Before the sun had set that evening, video clips of Danielle Taylor walking into the pilot lounge had already gone viral. The headline practically wrote itself. CEO shuts down racist pilot after mistaking her son for a threat. Captain Rebecca Whitaker's fall from grace was swift and public. Within 24 hours, Horizon Airlines released a formal statement confirming her suspension and announcing a full investigation into the incident. Internal emails circulated, mandating all staff attend mandatory training on unconscious bias, racial profiling, and professional conduct, sessions led not by a PR team but by real experts in civil rights and workplace reform. Captain Amara Brooks was formally appointed to Whitaker's routes, including international flights out of Terminal B. Her calm professionalism and open mentorship quickly became a symbol of the change Danielle had promised. Pilots and crew members who had once kept their heads down now came forward with stories of subtle biases, of overlooked talent, of being treated different. And Marcus? Marcus Taylor became something more than a young aviation enthusiast. He became a symbol. The teen who once sat trembling in the corner of a lounge now stood in front of a packed high school auditorium, speaking to aspiring pilots of every background. You belong here, he told them, his voice clear, not because of who your parents are, but because your dreams matter. 2. He had been scared, but that fear had taught him something. Injustice doesn't always arrive in big moments. Sometimes it sneaks in through everyday assumptions, a glance, a voice, a question of belonging. Miss Tanya Reynolds, the HR guide who had briefly left Marcus in the lounge, returned the next day shaken. I never imagined they'd treat him like that, she said quietly. I told him he'd be safe here. Danielle only nodded. He was, she replied, eventually. But safety, she knew, shouldn't be something children have to earn with credentials. Silence and restraint. It should be the default, especially in institutions claiming to build futures. Back at headquarters, Danielle convened a closed-door session with her executive board. She didn't yell. She didn't posture. She laid down a new blueprint, one that went beyond press releases and image polishing. Starting that week, Horizon launched the Next Horizon mentorship program, pairing young aspiring aviators, especially from underserved backgrounds, with active pilots and aviation leaders. The pilot lounge at Terminal B was redecorated with framed portraits of trailblazing pilots of color and a plaque that read, "The sky is vast, and it belongs to all of us." Meanwhile, Captain Whitaker's review concluded with findings that surprised few. This had not been her first questionable judgment call. 3 prior complaints, all quietly shelved. Danielle restructured the oversight protocol so that no complaint could ever be ignored again. As for Whitaker herself, she issued an apology, broadcast through legal intermediaries, but no one forgot her words that day. "If I had known he was your son." That line was dissected in training seminars, opinion pieces, and online think pieces for months. Because in the end, it wasn't about Marcus being the CEO's son. It was about why it had to be revealed before he was treated with respect. 6 months later, Marcus Taylor stood once again in the pilot's lounge. But this time, he didn't stand alone or unsure of himself. He was surrounded by a group of teenagers, just like he had been, wide-eyed and curious, as part of the inaugural class of the Next Horizon Mentorship Initiative. Standing beside him was Captain Amara Brooks, smiling proudly. The room itself had changed. Where once there were only couches and coffee machines, now there were posters of diverse pilots, quotes from aviation pioneers, and an electronic wall displaying success stories of young people who had once doubted they belonged, until they knew better. Marcus spoke with a quiet strength that could only come from lived experience. "I was once sitting right there," he said, pointing to the corner seat where he'd watched that aviation documentary. "I had a visitor badge and a dream. And for a moment, I thought I didn't belong." The students listened intently. "But I learned something that day, not just about injustice," Marcus continued, "but about resilience. The sky isn't reserved for a few. It's open, wide, and waiting for all of us." His mother watched from the back of the room, arms crossed, face soft. Danielle Taylor had rebuilt more than just a policy or a corporate image. She had reshaped the soul of Horizon Airlines, one decision, one hard truth, one courageous son at a time. The day Marcus had been nearly dragged from the lounge was no longer whispered about with shame. It was remembered as the day everything changed. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Marcus and Danielle stood at the observation window, watching a Horizon 787 take off. "Still want to fly?" she asked with a smile. "Now more than ever," Marcus replied. Danielle placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then I'll clear the skies." And with that, the two stood in silence, watching a plane soar upward into the clouds, a symbol of everything they had fought for. A dream delayed, but not denied.